The Drowning Season. Chapter 1, Arrival in Drayarn. The bus lurched to a stop, its engine choking on the damp, heavy air, a death rattle drowned by the storm's relentless roar. Rain lashed the windows, blurring the world into a chaotic smear of gray and green, as if the sky were dissolving into the earth, erasing the line between land and water. Anya Riven, a botanist with a penchant for the obscure, gripped her satchel, fingers numb from the cold seeping through the cracked windows, her scarf soaked and clinging to her neck like a noose woven from the storm's fury. The driver, a wiry man with skin like crumpled parchment and eyes that mirrored the fog, clouded, empty, unreadable, didn't turn as she gathered her things. His hands stayed locked on the wheel, knuckles white, as if letting go would unleash something worse than the tempest howling outside. "Mind the lake after dark," he rasped, voice rough as gravel dragged across stone, barely cutting through the wind's wail. "It takes what it wants, and it don't care who you are, miss." Anya adjusted her hood, rain stinging her face like a swarm of needles, each drop sharp and cold, carrying the scent of salt and decay, a stench that clung to her lungs. "Takes? What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with unease, her scientific mind already grasping for logic in his cryptic warning, dismissing it as superstition but unable to shake the chill it left. He flicked his gaze to the rearview mirror, his eyes meeting hers for a fleeting, unsettling moment, glinting with something not quite human, something old, something that knew too much, something that had seen the lake's secrets and survived. "You'll see. Don't linger near the water. Not if you want to leave this place with your soul intact." The bus door hissed open, releasing her into Drayarn, a coastal village drowning in mist and marshland, its air thick with the stench of algae and rot, though the sea was miles away, hidden beyond fog-drenched hills that loomed like silent sentinels, watching, waiting. The square was a desolate expanse of slick cobblestones, flanked by crooked stone houses that leaned under the rain's weight, their windows dark, like eyes sewn shut, refusing to see what lurked in the shadows. Townsfolk hurried past, their faces pale as bone, their gazes sliding away from her as if she carried a plague, their footsteps splashing in puddles that seemed too dark, too still, reflecting nothing but a void where their faces should have been. Anya's boots sank into the mud, each step a battle against the earth's greedy pull, the ground sucking at her like it wanted to claim her, to swallow her whole. Her breath caught in her throat, the air heavy with a sour tang, sharper than the sea's salt, as if the village itself were rotting from within, its decay seeping into the soil, the air, her skin. Her rented cottage loomed at the village's edge, a squat, moss-covered building with a sagging roof and a chimney coughing weak smoke into the storm, its stones slick with green, like the skin of something long submerged, something that had crawled from the lake and refused to die. Inside, the air was colder than outside, the floorboards groaning under her weight, each creak sounding like a whisper in a language she didn't know, a language of water and loss, of things that should not be named. She lit a fire in the hearth, but the flames flickered weakly, as if afraid of the damp that clung to everything, walls, furniture, her skin, which felt clammy, wrong, as if it had absorbed the storm's essence, as if the lake were already inside her. Unpacking her notebooks, pencils, and vials, she muttered, "Who builds a village in a place like this?" Her mission was clear: catalog the rare plants thriving in Drurn's wetlands, orchids, bog myrtle, water hemlock, species that clung to life in the marsh's black heart, defying the decay that surrounded them. But the silence, broken only by the rain's relentless drum, felt like a warning, a voice just beyond hearing, urging her to leave before it was too late, before the lake noticed her. She set up her desk near the window, arranging her tools with a precision that calmed her nerves, pencils sharpened to points, vials labeled in her neat script, a battered field guide dog-eared from years of use, its pages marked with notes about plants, not curses, not lakes that take, not things that watch from the water. The cottage smelled of mildew and something sharper, like algae left to rot in standing water, a scent that clung to her clothes, her hair, her lungs, as if the lake had already marked her. As she unpacked, she noticed a carving on the doorframe, a crude spiral, etched deep into the wood, its edges worn smooth by countless fingers, as if touched in prayer, in fear, in desperation, a ritual repeated by those who came before her. She traced it, her skin prickling, a chill running down her spine, wondering who had stood in this doorway, feeling the same unease, the same sense of being watched, of being known. The rain pressed against the windows, its rhythm hypnotic, forming words just beyond comprehension, her name, perhaps, or something older, something that didn't belong to her, something that had been here before the village, before the hills, before time itself. She brewed tea, but the water tasted wrong, metallic and briny, like it had been drawn from the lake's depths, its flavor lingering on her tongue like a warning, a taste of something alive and hungry. That night, as she lay in bed, the rain's whisper grew louder, seeping into her dreams, where water lapped at her door, rising, creeping under the threshold, cold and black, pulling her down into a darkness that pulsed like a heartbeat, a rhythm older than the earth, calling her name. Chapter 2, First Body. Dawn broke, gray and oppressive, the sky a bruise over Drearn, heavy with the promise of more rain, its weight pressing down on the village like a hand. Anya woke to a scream that sliced through the silence, sharp and raw, like a blade through flesh, tearing her from a dream of drowning in black water, her lungs heavy, her scream silent, swallowed by the flood. She stumbled out of the cottage, her coat half-buttoned, boots slipping on the wet stone path, her breath visible in the cold air, curling like ghosts rising from the earth. A crowd had gathered in a field beyond the church, their faces pale as ash, their breaths mingling with the fog, their eyes fixed on something in the dirt, their silence heavier than the storm, a silence that screamed of fear and resignation. At their center lay a boy, no older than 16, sprawled in the cracked, dry earth, his clothes untouched by the rain that had soaked the village all night. His lips were blue, eyes wide and unblinking, staring at a sky that offered no mercy, no answers. A trickle of dark, brackish water seeped from his mouth, pooling beneath his head, glinting like oil in the weak light, its surface rippling as if alive, as if breathing. His hands were clenched, nails digging into his palms, leaving crescent-shaped wounds that wept red, as if he'd fought something no one could see, something that had held him down until his lungs gave out, drowning him in a place where water couldn't exist. Anya knelt beside him, her breath catching, her scientific mind reeling at the impossibility, her hands hovering over the body, afraid to touch, afraid of what she might feel, cold skin, or something colder, something that wasn't human. The field was miles from the lake, the earth parched, cracked like old skin, yet his clothes were dry, his skin clammy, like he'd been pulled from the water moments ago, his body heavy with its weight. "He's drowned," she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands reaching for her notebook, needing to anchor herself in facts, in logic, in anything that could explain the unexplainable. "How is this possible?" An older woman, her shawl clutched tight, sobbed, her voice breaking like glass, her eyes darting to the horizon where the lake lay hidden in fog, its presence a weight on the village's chest, a shadow over their hearts. "It's the season. It's begun again," she said, her words a wail, her hands shaking as she crossed herself, muttering prayers that sounded like pleas for mercy, for salvation, for an end to the curse that gripped Drearn. Reverend Malik pushed through the crowd, his black coat flapping like a raven's wings, his face a map of grief and fear, eyes sunken, as if he'd carried this burden for decades, his shoulders bent under its weight, his hands trembling as he clutched a worn Bible. "Step back, Miss Riven," he said, his voice low but sharp, like a blade honed by years of use, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd, silencing their whispers. "This isn't your concern. It's everyone's concern," Anya snapped, standing, her hands shaking, her coat smeared with mud, her notebook clutched like a shield against the madness. "A boy's dead. His lungs are full of water, but there's no water here. You can't just ignore that. There's got to be an explanation, groundwater, a medical condition, a toxin, something." Her voice rose, desperate for reason, for answers that fit her world of science, not this village of shadows and whispers, of things that shouldn't be. Malik's gaze bored into her, cold and unyielding, his lips a thin line, eyes glinting with something like pity, or fear, or both. "His lungs hold lake water. Brackish, old as sin. Bury him outside the churchyard. The lakes claimed him. He's not ours to keep." The crowd murmured, their voices a low hum of fear and resignation, their eyes darting to the ground, the sky, anywhere but the boy's face, his eyes too wide, too glassy, reflecting something not the sky, something dark, deep, alive, something that watched them all. His jaw was clenched, teeth cracked from the force, and the water from his mouth smelled of algae and decay, sharp enough to sting Anya's nose, to burn her throat, to linger like a curse. She stepped closer, her boots sinking into the dry earth, noticing his hands again, the way his nails had dug into his palms, leaving wounds that looked carved by claws, not fingers, as if he'd fought something with hands, with eyes, with a hunger that wasn't human. "Who was he?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, her notebook open in trembling hands, her pencil poised to write, to make sense of the impossible, to hold on to reason in a place that defied it. "Jonas," a man muttered, his voice thick with grief, his face half hidden by a hood, his hands clenched into fists, knuckles white. "Fisher's lad. Always wandering too close to the lake, sketching the reeds, talking about the water like it spoke to him, like it had a voice, like it knew his name." His voice broke, and he turned away, shoulders shaking, footsteps heavy in the mud, leaving prints that filled with dark water, as if the earth wept for him. As they carried the body away, wrapped in a tarp that sagged under its weight, dripping water that shouldn't be there, Anya lingered, her eyes drawn to the ground. There, in the dirt, was a faint imprint, a webbed footprint, larger than any animal she knew, its edges smudged but unmistakable, 5 toes spread wide, connected by thin, glistening membranes, like the hand of something that swam in places it shouldn't. She sketched it quickly, her pencil shaking, the lines uneven, her heart pounding as she memorized its shape, too large, too deliberate, too wrong, its membranes glinting in her mind like wet skin, like scales. It vanished under the crowd's footsteps, but not before she felt its weight, its presence, like a hand on her chest, pressing down, squeezing her lungs. Back at the cottage, she scribbled in her notebook, "Unexplained drowning. Cause unknown. Investigate lake composition. Footprint, possible animal. Test soil for toxins." The words felt hollow, like trying to pin a name to a shadow, to cage something that refused to be held, something that slipped through logic like water through fingers. She poured tea, but it tasted wrong, metallic and briny, like it was steeped in the lake's water, its flavor lingering on her tongue, heavy, bitter, alive. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling, and the spiral carving on the doorframe seemed to watch her, its curves glinting in the firelight, pulsing with a rhythm she couldn't name, a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat, like the lake itself. She touched it, fingers cold, and felt a faint vibration, like a pulse buried in the wood, echoing the rain outside, whispering her name, Anya. Anya. Chapter 3, The Journal. The cottage was a tomb of damp and shadow, its walls closing in as Anya brewed tea to calm her nerves, the kettle's whistle sharp and jarring, like a scream cut short, echoing Jonas's cry in her mind. His face haunted her, those open eyes, that impossible water, the webbed footprint defying her logic, mocking her science. Seeking distraction, she explored the cottage, fingers tracing the warped wood of the walls, the cold stone of the hearth, floorboards creaking like whispers, speaking of secrets buried deep in the earth, in the lake. Under a loose board near the bed, she found a journal, its leather cover soft with rot, pages brittle and yellowed, smelling of mildew and something sharper, like rotting reeds, like the marsh itself, like the lake's breath. The ink was smudged, but the words were legible, written in a neat, feminine hand that grew shakier with each entry, as if the writer's hand trembled with fear, or something worse, something that knew her name. October 12th. The reeds move when no wind blows. I saw her again, standing in the marsh, her dress heavy with water, eyes empty, like holes in the world. She didn't speak, but she knows me. I feel her in the dark, watching, waiting. The townsfolk won't talk, but they know something. They avoid the lake like it's alive, like it listens. I found a carving in the church today, a spiral, like the one on my door. The priest saw me looking, and his face went white, like he'd seen a ghost. He wouldn't explain. He just prayed, his hands shaking, his voice breaking. Anya's pulse quickened, her breath shallow as she read on, the candlelight flickering, casting shadows that dripped like water, pooling on the floor, moving when they shouldn't. The journal belonged to Eliza Merrow, a botanist who came to Drayarn 10 years ago to study the same wetlands, chasing the same rare plants, orchids, bog myrtle, water hemlock, species that thrived in the marsh's decay. Her entries grew frantic, disjointed, the handwriting sprawling across the pages, ink smudged with what looked like tears, or water, or blood. October 15th. The lake whispers at night. It knows my name. I dream of water in my lungs, cold and black, pulling me down into darkness that breathes. Something moved in the marsh today, not a fish, not an animal. It watched me, eyes glinting under the water, too many eyes, too deep. I told the priest, and he gave me a necklace, bone with carvings, said it would protect me. It feels heavy, like a stone, like a chain. The spiral on my door is warm now, like it's alive, like it's watching. The final entry was a scrawl, the pen tearing the paper, ink smeared with what looked like water, dark and viscous, alive. It's coming. It sees me. Even in my dreams. The lake knows my name. It's inside me now, in my blood, in my breath. Anya slammed the journal shut, her heart pounding, the candle flame trembling as if caught in a draft, its light weak against the darkness that seemed to press against the windows, against her skin. Eliza had vanished without a trace, her disappearance called an accident, a fall, a misstep in the marsh, a story to soothe the village's guilt, to silence their fear. But these words were no accident, they were a warning, a plea, a scream frozen in ink, a cry for help that no one heard, no one answered. Had Eliza chased the same plants, sketched the same reeds, or had she stumbled onto something else, something the lake didn't want known, something it killed to keep silent? Anya tucked the journal into her satchel, its weight heavy, like a stone pulling her down, her mind racing, fingers brushing the spiral carving on the doorframe, its edges worn by countless fingers, each touch a prayer, a plea, a curse. Who else had lived here? Who else had felt the lake's gaze, heard its whisper, seen its face in the dark? That night, her dreams were a flood. Water poured through the ceiling, cold and black, filling the room until she was swimming in it, lungs burning, limbs heavy as stone. Voices whispered her name, soft and insistent, a chorus of the lost, their hands brushing her skin, cold and slick, pulling her down into the dark, their fingers sharp, their nails clawing at her flesh. Faces floated in the water, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water that choked the air, jaws clenched, teeth cracked from the force, their gazes fixed on her, accusing, hungry. She thrashed, her hands clawing at nothing, her screams muffled by the flood, the water pressing into her lungs, heavy and alive, tasting of salt and decay, filling her with the lake's weight. She woke gasping, her bed soaked, sheets heavy with the stench of lake water, briny, sharp, alive, clinging to her skin, her hair, her lungs. Her throat burned, tasting of algae and rot, and her hands shook as she lit a candle, the flame trembling, casting shadows that moved, dripped, like water running down the walls, pooling on the floor. She checked the roof. Dry. The floorboards. Dry. Yet her pillow was sodden, the air thick with decay, and her boots, left by the door, were filled with water, dark and viscous, pooling like blood, bubbling faintly, as if alive. She poured it out, hands trembling, and found a small, silver fish at the bottom, its body still, eyes fixed on her, unblinking, scales glinting like wet bone, its mouth open, spilling a trickle of black water. She dropped the boot, her scream caught in her throat, and ran to the bathroom, splashing her face with tap water that felt too cold, too heavy, like it carried the lake's weight, its taste sharp on her tongue, metallic and wrong. The mirror showed her reflection, but her eyes looked wrong, too wide, too wet, pupils dilated like pools, swallowing the light, glinting with something that wasn't her. She blinked, and for a moment, her reflection didn't follow, its lips parting to reveal a trickle of dark water that ran down the glass, pooling on the sink, bubbling like a spring, alive. She screamed, stumbling back, the candle falling and plunging the room into darkness. She fumbled for the light, hands shaking, breath raw, and when she looked again, the mirror was clear, her reflection her own, but her eyes still stung, her skin felt wrong, like it wasn't entirely hers, like something else was wearing it, moving beneath it, watching from within. Chapter 4, The Drowned Woman. The marsh was a labyrinth of black pools and reeds, the air humming with insects and the sour tang of rot, like something long dead stirring beneath the surface, its breath poisoning the air. Anya waded through, boots sinking into the mire, her notebook filling with sketches of rare orchids and water hemlock, their delicate petals a stark contrast to the marsh's menace, their beauty a lie hiding the decay below. The lake loomed in the distance, its surface unnaturally still, like a sheet of obsidian swallowing the light, its edges shrouded in fog that seemed to breathe, pulsing with a life of its own. She was sketching a cluster of bog myrtle, hands steady despite the journal's weight in her satchel, its pages heavy with Eliza's fear, when a flicker of movement caught her eye, sharp and sudden, like a shadow crossing the sun, stealing the light, plunging the marsh into darkness. A woman stood knee-deep in the marsh, her dress sodden, clinging to her skeletal frame, the fabric gray and tattered, heavy with water, its hem trailing like weeds, dragging in the mud. Her hair hung in wet ropes, plastered to her skull, and her eyes, wide, unblinking, locked onto Anya's, their pupils swallowing the irises, black as the lake itself, empty as death, yet alive with a hunger that made Anya's heart stop. Her skin was gray, almost translucent, fingers curled like claws, nails sharp and yellowed, dripping with water that wasn't rain, water that smelled of decay, of the lake's depths. Her mouth opened, spilling dark water that didn't stop, pouring like a river, staining the marsh black, bubbling like a spring, alive and writhing, as if it carried something within it. The air grew colder, the insects falling silent, the reeds stilling as if holding their breath, the world pausing in fear, in reverence. The woman's eyes didn't blink, didn't waver, and Anya felt them like a weight, pressing into her chest, stealing her breath, squeezing her heart until it hurt. "Hello." Anya's voice trembled, her heart hammering, her notebook slipping from her fingers into the mud, its pages soaking instantly, the ink bleeding like blood. "Do you need help? Are you hurt?" Her voice cracked, her satchel heavy against her hip, the journal's weight pulling her down, like the lake itself, like the woman's gaze. The woman didn't move. Her eyes grew wider, the water from her mouth flowing faster, bubbling like a spring, pooling around her legs, dark and viscous, smelling of decay, sharp and choking, alive with something that moved beneath its surface. Anya took a step forward, boots slipping in the mud, hands clutching at reeds that cut her palms, drawing blood that mingled with the water, staining it red, then black. "Please, say something," she shouted, her voice echoing in the silence, swallowed by the fog, her breath coming in sharp gasps, her chest tight, as if the lake were already inside her. With a sound like a sigh, low, mournful, final, like the last breath of a dying thing, the woman sank straight down, the marsh closing over her without a ripple, the water smooth as glass, as if she'd never been there, as if the marsh had swallowed her whole. Anya splashed forward, hands clawing at the reeds, breath raw, boots sinking deeper with each step, the mud sucking at her like hands, like the lake itself. "Wait," she screamed, her voice tearing at her throat, her heart pounding so hard it hurt, her vision blurring with tears that tasted of salt, of decay. She knelt, hands plunging into the cold, searching for a trace, a scrap of cloth, a ripple, a sign, but there was nothing, just the black water, still and silent, and her reflection, staring back with eyes too wide, mouth too full of shadows, jaw clenched tight, as if holding back a scream. For a moment, it didn't look like her, its face paler, sharper, eyes empty, like the woman's, like Jonas's, like something that belonged to the lake. Anya stumbled back to the cottage, clothes soaked, mind reeling, hands shaking as she locked the door, though it felt futile, like locking out the tide, the lake, the thing that lived in it. She sat by the fire, Eliza's journal open on her lap, its pages heavy with the weight of her fear, the words blurring as her vision swam. The woman in the marsh wasn't a hallucination, she was real, and she wasn't alone. Anya sketched the woman's face, pencil trembling, lines uneven, eyes too large, too empty, mouth spilling water that seemed to bleed onto the page, staining it black, as if the lake had touched it. She touched the spiral carving on the doorframe, its edges cold, and felt a pulse, stronger now, like a heart waking from sleep, beating in time with the rain, with her own heart, with the thing that lived in the lake. The rain outside whispered her name, louder now, more insistent, Anya. Anya. She clutched the journal, fingers smudging the ink, and found a new page, one she hadn't seen before, the ink fresh, the handwriting her own. It sees me. Chapter 5, Unopened Mouths. Anya stormed into the town hall, boots leaving muddy prints on the stone floor, satchel heavy with the journal, its weight like a stone pulling her down, its pages whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear, secrets that screamed in the silence. The records room was a crypt of dust and mildew, shelves sagging under the weight of ancient ledgers, their pages yellowed and curling, smelling of rotten time, their edges soft as flesh, as if they'd been submerged and forgotten. She spent hours flipping through them, fingers smudging ink, eyes burning from the dim light of a single lantern that flickered as if afraid, its flame weak against the darkness that seemed to breathe. 37 drownings in 40 years, all between late October and early November, a period the records called the drowning season, the words written in a trembling hand, as if the scribe feared the ink itself, feared its power to name the unnameable, to call it forth. Each victim was found with eyes open, jaws clenched so tightly some had shattered their teeth, their lungs full of brackish water that matched the lake's chemical profile, high in sodium, sulfur, and something unidentifiable, something the reports called unknown organic matter, a phrase that chilled her blood, made her skin crawl, as if the lake were alive, its water a living thing. Some victims were found in the lake, bodies tangled in weeds, faces frozen in terror, hands clutching at nothing, as if they'd tried to fight the water itself, to claw their way back to air. Others were found in dry fields, attics, even locked rooms, their lungs filled with the same water, their eyes reflecting something no one could name, something deep, something old, something alive, something that watched from the water's depths. Anya's hands shook as she read, her notebook filling with frantic notes, no correlation to weather, location, or cause. Water composition consistent across victims. Jaw contraction, fear, pain, toxin, neurotoxin in lake water. Test for paralytic agents. She sketched the webbed footprint from the field, its shape haunting her, its edges too precise for an animal, too deliberate, too wrong, its membranes glinting in her memory like wet skin, like scales, like something that shouldn't exist. Miss Riven, a voice rasped, rough as gravel dragged across stone, cutting through the silence like a blade. Callan, the fisherman, stood in the doorway, hands rough from years of nets, eyes hollow, like he hadn't slept in days, his face pale as the dead. His coat was damp, though the rain had paused, and his boots left puddles that smelled of the lake, sharp and briny, pooling on the floor like blood, dark and viscous, bubbling faintly, as if alive. "You're digging where you shouldn't," he said, his voice low, gaze flickering to the ledgers, then to her notebook, where the footprint sketch lay open, its lines stark against the page, accusing, knowing. "Then tell me," Anya snapped, slamming a ledger shut, dust rising in a cloud that made her cough, her throat burning with the taste of decay, of the lake. "What's killing these people? 37 in 40 years, and no one asks why. No investigations, no autopsies, just the drowning season. That's not an answer." Her voice rose, echoing in the empty room, her hands shaking, her notebook clutched like a lifeline, a shield against the madness. Callan glanced at the window, where rain streaked the glass like veins, starting again as if summoned by her words, its rhythm a whisper, a call, a curse. "The lake listens," he said softly, stepping closer, boots squelching, the smell of lake water stronger now, choking the air, thick as fog. "It hears your questions. It knows your name now." Anya's blood ran cold, fingers tightening on the ledger, the journal heavy in her satchel, its weight pulling at her shoulder, her soul. "What are you talking about?" He leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper, eyes dark with something deeper than grief, fear, resignation, guilt, a wound that wouldn't heal. "The drowned. They're not gone. They're in the water, waiting. You saw one, didn't you? In the marsh?" Her mouth went dry, the memory of the woman's eyes burning in her mind, those empty, knowing eyes that saw through her, into her, past her, into something deeper, something darker. "How did you?" "Because I've seen them too," he said, his voice breaking, hands trembling as he gripped the doorframe, knuckles white, as if holding on to the world. "Once they find you, there's no running. They'll come for you, just like they came for my sister." He turned and left, footsteps echoing in the empty hall, leaving Anya alone with the ledger's secrets, the journal's warnings, and the weight of his words, heavy as water, heavy as death. She stayed until dusk, her lantern flickering, shadows growing longer, curling like fingers across the walls, reaching for her, whispering her name. As she left, she noticed the floor, dry when she arrived, was now slick with water, pooling around her boots, reflecting her face. But the reflection's eyes were wrong, too wide, too wet, and its mouth twitched, spilling a trickle of dark water that ran across the stone, bubbling like a spring, alive. She stumbled out into the rain, heart pounding, the journal heavy in her satchel, its pages whispering Eliza's warning, "The lake knows my name." The rain answered, its whisper louder, forming her name, Anya. Anya. Chapter 6, Dreams of Water. Anya's dreams were a deluge, a torrent of black water pouring from the ceiling, cold and heavy, filling the room until she was swimming in it, lungs burning, limbs leaden. Voices whispered her name, soft and insistent, a chorus of the lost, their hands brushing her skin, cold and slick, pulling her down into the dark, their fingers sharp, nails clawing at her flesh. Faces floated in the water, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouth spilling water that choked the air, jaws clenched, teeth cracked from the force, gazes fixed on her, accusing, hungry, alive. She thrashed, hands clawing at nothing, screams muffled by the flood, the water pressing into her lungs, heavy and alive, tasting of salt and decay, filling her with the lake's weight, its hunger. She woke gasping, bed soaked, sheets heavy with the stench of lake water, briny, sharp, alive, clinging to her skin, her hair, her lungs. Her throat burned, tasting of algae and rot, and her hands shook as she lit a candle, the flame trembling, casting shadows that moved, dripped, like water running down the walls, pooling on the floor, reflecting faces that weren't there. Her skin was clammy, hair damp, as if she'd been submerged for hours, her body heavy with the memory of the dream. She checked the roof. Dry. The floorboards. Dry. Yet her pillow was sodden, the air thick with decay, and her boots, left by the door, were filled with water, dark and viscous, pooling like blood, bubbling faintly, as if alive. She poured it out, hands trembling, and found a small, silver fish at the bottom, its body still, eyes fixed on her, unblinking, scales glinting like wet bone, mouth open, spilling a trickle of black water that moved, writhed, as if alive. She stumbled to the bathroom, splashing her face with tap water that felt too cold, too heavy, like it carried the lake's weight, its taste sharp, metallic, wrong. The mirror showed her reflection, but her eyes were wrong, too wide, too wet, pupils dilated like pools, swallowing the light, glinting with something that wasn't her, something that watched from within. She blinked, and her reflection didn't, its lips parting to spill dark water down the glass, pooling on the sink, bubbling like a spring, alive, whispering her name. She screamed, stumbling back, the candle falling, plunging the room into darkness. She fumbled for the light, hands shaking, breath raw, and when she looked again, the mirror was clear, her reflection her own, but her eyes still stung, skin felt wrong, like something else was wearing it, moving beneath it, swimming in her veins. She sat up all night, clutching Eliza's journal, reading the same line, "The lake sees me." The rain outside answered, its rhythm forming words she couldn't grasp, her name, over and over, like a summons, a command, a curse. She touched the spiral carving on the doorframe, its edges cold, and felt a pulse, stronger now, like a heart waking from sleep, beating in time with the rain, with her heart, with the thing that lived in the lake. The candle flickered, and her shadow moved, edges rippling, as if drowning, its shape not entirely her own, its outline blurred, like water, like something watching from the dark. Chapter 7, The Names in the Water. Reverend Malik found her in the church, hands trembling, clutching the journal, eyes red from sleeplessness, skin pale and clammy, like she'd been pulled from the water, her breath shallow, her body heavy with fear. The sanctuary was dim, lit only by flickering candles that cast long shadows on the stone walls, their flames trembling as if afraid of the dark, their light weak against the shadows pooling like water in the corners, moving when they shouldn't. "You've seen them," he said, voice low, like he feared the walls were listening, eyes darting to the shadows, hands shaking as he gripped a worn Bible, its cover cracked like the earth in the field, pages thin and yellowed, like skin, whispering secrets as they turned. It wasn't a question. "A woman in the marsh," Anya said, throat tight, voice barely a whisper, journal heavy in her hands, its weight pulling at her arms, her heart, her soul. She sank into the water. No trace. Her eyes, they weren't right. Empty, knowing, like they saw through me, past me, into something I can't name. Malik's face tightened, lips a thin line, eyes glinting with pity, fear, guilt. He pressed a necklace into her hand, carved from bone, etched with runes that writhed in the candlelight, their shapes twisting like reeds in the wind, cold and heavy, like a stone pulling her down, like a chain binding her to the lake. "Wear this," he said, voice trembling, fingers brushing hers, cold as the grave, as the water. "Don't speak their names aloud. Names, call them closer. Their names." Anya's voice cracked, fingers closing around the necklace, its weight chilling her, sending a shiver up her arm, her skin prickling as if touched by something unseen. "Who are they?" "The drowned," he whispered, glancing at the stained glass windows, where rain made the saints' faces weep, their colors bleeding into the dark, their eyes seeming to follow her, accusing, knowing, watching from the other side of the glass. "The water remembers them. It remembers everything. It's been here longer than this village, longer than the church, older than the hills, older than time itself. It's hungry, and it's waking." She slipped the necklace on, its weight heavy against her chest, like an anchor, runes cold against her skin, almost burning, like ice, like fire. "What do they want?" "You," he said, eyes boring into hers, voice trembling with pity, fear, guilt, a weight he'd carried too long. "You've read the journal. You've seen them. The lake knows you now." He paused, gaze flickering to the altar, where a spiral carving matched the one on her doorframe, edges worn smooth, glinting in the candlelight, pulsing with a rhythm she could feel in her bones, her blood, her soul. "It's been waiting for someone like you, an outsider, someone who doesn't belong to the pact." "What pact?" she demanded, voice rising, echoing in the empty church, candles flickering as if stirred by her words, their flames trembling, weak, afraid. He shook his head, lips a thin line, hands trembling as he gripped the Bible, its pages rustling like whispers, like the lake's voice. "Leave, Miss Riven. While you still can. The lake's awake, and it's hungry." He turned away, footsteps swallowed by the dark, leaving Anya alone with the flickering candles and the rain's relentless whisper, louder now, forming her name, Anya. Anya. She touched the necklace, runes pulsing faintly, and felt that heartbeat from the doorframe, stronger now, echoing in her chest, as if the lake were inside her, beating in time with her heart, calling her to the water. Chapter 8, Callan's Story. Anya found Callan at the dock, hands steady as he mended nets, eyes haunted by something deeper than grief, guilt, fear, a wound that wouldn't heal, bleeding into his every word, every glance. The lake was a black mirror behind him, surface too still, like it was holding its breath, waiting, its edges shrouded in fog that pulsed, breathed, lived. His coat was damp, boots crusted with mud, and the air around him smelled of lake water, sharp and briny, like blood, its scent clinging to him like a curse, like a mark. "Tell me about your sister," Anya said, voice soft but firm, notebook tucked under her arm, journal heavy in her satchel, necklace cold against her chest, runes pressing into her skin, whispering. He didn't look up, fingers moving mechanically, nets trembling, strands frayed like his nerves, his soul. She was 16. Bright, always laughing, always sketching the marsh like it was a paradise, drawing the reeds, the water, the shadows that moved when nothing should. Then one night, she woke me, screaming. Said she saw our mother outside her window, dripping wet, weeds tangled in her hair, eyes like holes, black and empty, staring through her. She was shaking, begging me to stay with her, to keep the window shut, to keep it out. I didn't. I thought she was dreaming, caught in some nightmare from the stories we grew up with, stories of the lake, of the things it takes, of the faces in the water. His voice cracked, hands stilling, net sagging, its strands wet, glistening, as if dipped in the lake, as if touched by its hands. Anya's stomach churned, fingers tightening on her notebook, pencil digging into her palm, necklace heavy, runes cold, like claws, like ice. What happened to her? Morning came, Callan said, eyes distant, fixed on the lake, its surface glinting like a blade, sharp and cold, cutting into his soul. They found her in the water, braid wrapped tight around her neck, hands clutching it like she'd done it herself. Her eyes were open, jaw locked, water spilling from her mouth, dark and thick, like it was alive, like it was breathing. They said she drowned, but I know better. The lake took her. It claimed her. His hands trembled, voice barely a whisper, eyes wet with unshed tears, reflecting the lake, reflecting something older, something hungrier. She drew the spiral, you know. The one on your door. She carved it, said it kept her safe. It didn't. Nothing does. Anya's breath caught, fingers brushing the necklace, runes cold and sharp, like teeth. You think the lake did something to her? Callan's eyes met hers, dark and hollow, like he was already underwater, drowning in guilt, in fear. It doesn't do. It claims. It's been claiming since before this village had a name, since before the hills were formed. It took my mother, my sister, and now, he paused, gaze flickering to the necklace, runes catching the weak light, glinting like eyes, watching, waiting, knowing. It knows you're here. You've seen them, haven't you? The drowned? She nodded, throat too tight to speak, the woman's eyes burning in her mind, those empty, knowing eyes that saw through her, into her, past her, into the lake's heart. It's already started, he said, turning back to his nets, hands moving faster, as if trying to outrun something, fingers trembling, net slipping, wet and heavy, like it had been pulled from the lake's depths. Run if you want. It won't matter. The lake always finds you. Chapter 9, The Water Inside. At breakfast, Anya coughed, throat burning like she'd swallowed fire, tasting salt and decay, a flavor that clung to her tongue, choking her. Something small and slick slid into her mouth, cold and writhing, like a living thing, squirming against her tongue, alive. She gagged, spitting it onto the table, a silver fish, no bigger than a coin, flopping, eyes fixed on her, unblinking, scales glinting like wet bone, mouth open, spilling black water that bubbled, moved, lived. She screamed, knocking it to the floor, where it twitched until it stilled, leaving a smear of dark water that smelled of the lake, sharp and briny, alive, bubbling like a spring, whispering her name. Her vision blurred, tears streaming down her face, salty and sharp, like the lake itself, stinging her eyes, burning her skin. She ran to the mirror, prying at her fingernails with shaking hands, breath raw, heart pounding. They were soft, peeling like wet paper, skin beneath gray and puckered, like she'd been submerged for hours, fingers trembling as she touched them, expecting scales, expecting something not human, something that belonged to the lake. Her breath came in sharp gasps, each one tasting of algae and rot, choking her, filling her lungs with the lake's weight, its hunger. She stumbled outside, rain soaking her in seconds, but it didn't feel like rain, it felt like the lake, seeping into her pores, weighing her down, pooling in her lungs, heavy and alive. She clawed at her arms, half expecting to find scales, her skin crawling with the sensation of something moving beneath it, swimming in her veins, curling around her bones, alive, aware. The necklace burned against her chest, runes pulsing with a heat that wasn't warmth, like a heartbeat not her own, steady and relentless, beating in time with the pulse she'd felt in the doorframe, in the earth, in the lake. She tore at it, nails drawing blood, but it wouldn't budge, as if fused to her flesh, runes sinking into her skin, marking her, claiming her, binding her to the water. She fell to her knees in the mud, hands sinking into the earth, and felt a pulse, faint but steady, like a heart deep in the ground, beating with the rain, with her heart, with the lake. Anya, come to me. She staggered to her feet, vision swimming, and saw her reflection in a puddle, surface rippling, alive. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too wet, pupils dilated like pools, swallowing light, and her mouth twitched, spilling a trickle of dark water that stained the mud, pooling around her boots, bubbling like a spring, whispering her name, calling her down. She screamed, stumbling back, and ran to the cottage, locking the door, though the lock felt useless, walls too thin, air too heavy. The lake was inside her now, in her lungs, her blood, her bones, whispering her name, pulling her down into the dark, into its heart. Chapter 10, The Dry Drowning. Midnight brought a scream that tore through Drayorn, raw and guttural, like an animal caught in a trap, its echo lingering like a wound, bleeding into the silence, cutting through the rain's relentless drum. Anya joined the crowd outside a crooked house, windows dark, door ajar, swinging in the wind, creaking like a warning, a cry, a plea. Up a creaking staircase, an old woman lay in her attic, body contorted, mouth open in a silent wail, hands clawing at the air, nails broken and bloody, as if she'd fought something invisible, unstoppable, hungry. Her lungs were full of water, though the room was sealed, floor dry, walls unblemished, yet sweating beads of moisture that glinted in the lantern light, pooling on the floor, reflecting faces that weren't there, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water. Her eyes stared upward, frozen in terror, as if something had crawled across the ceiling, its weight bending the beams, cracking the wood, leaving marks no one else seemed to see, marks that whispered of something that shouldn't exist. She saw it, a neighbor whispered, voice trembling, hands clutching a rosary so tightly her knuckles bled, eyes darting to the shadows, wide with fear, with knowledge. The thing that walks where water shouldn't be. It came for her, marked her, took her. Anya's necklace felt like a noose, weight pulling at her chest, runes burning her skin, pulsing like a heartbeat, like the lake's heart, alive, awake, hungry. She didn't ask what the neighbor meant. She'd seen the woman in the marsh, felt the water in her dreams, tasted it in her throat, seen it in her reflection. She knew what was coming, felt it in her bones, her blood, her soul. As the crowd dispersed, footsteps heavy, whispers fading, she lingered, eyes drawn to the ceiling. There, in the flickering lantern light, were faint marks, wet, webbed footprints, larger than any animal, trailing across the beams, down the wall, vanishing into shadows, edges glistening, alive, pulse. Ing with the lake's rhythm. She touched one, fingers coming away slick, water cold and alive, whispering her name, soft and insistent, pulling at her mind, her heart. She ran back to the cottage, heart pounding, breath raw, journal heavy in her satchel, its pages screaming Eliza's warning, it's coming. She slammed the door, locking it, though it felt futile, like locking out the tide, the lake, the thing that lived in it. The fire was dying, flames weak, and in its light, her shadow moved, edges rippling, as if drowning, shape not entirely her own, blurred, like water, like something watching. She opened the journal, hands shaking, and found a new page, ink fresh, handwriting her own, Anya, come to me. The words blurred, her vision swimming, tears tasting of salt and decay, like the lake itself, burning her eyes, her throat, her soul. The rain outside answered, louder, forming her name, a chorus of voices, pulling her down. Chapter 11, The Forgotten Pact. Reverend Malik lit a candle in the church, its flame a dying star, casting shadows that dripped like water, pooling in corners, moving when they shouldn't, alive with the lake's presence. His hands shook as he spoke, voice barely a whisper, eyes darting to the shadows, as if they might reach for him, claim him. Centuries ago, Drayon made a pact, he said, face pale, lips trembling, hands gripping a cracked Bible, its pages thin, yellowed, whispering secrets as they turned. One life, given willingly each season, to sate the lake. The first was a woman who drowned herself to silence a truth too heavy to speak, a secret about what lies beneath the water, older than the hills, hungrier than death, something that was here before the village, before the church, before the world was named, something that feeds on names, on lives, on truths. His eyes bored into Anya's, wet with tears, fear, guilt, a burden he'd carried too long, a wound that bled in his voice. The water accepted her sacrifice. But when the village stopped offering, the lake started choosing, taking what it wanted, marking those who didn't belong. Anya's voice trembled, hands gripping the pew until knuckles whitened, necklace burning, runes pulsing like a heartbeat, sinking into her skin, claiming her. And if no one volunteers? It takes what it wants, Malik said, gaze flickering to the windows, where rain streaked the glass like tears, saints' faces bleeding into the dark, their eyes accusing, knowing, watching from beyond. It's hungrier now. It knows you've read the journal, asked questions, seen them. It knows your name. His voice broke, hands trembling, Bible rustling like the lake's whisper. Why me? Her throat tightened, runes burning like fire, like claws, digging into her chest, her heart, her soul. You're an outsider, he said, voice heavy with pity, eyes wet, hands shaking. Unbound by the pact. The drowned are drawn to you, like moths to a flame. They see you, and the lake sees through them. He paused, gaze flickering to the altar, where a spiral carving matched her doorframe, edges worn, glinting, pulsing with a rhythm she felt in her bones, her blood, her soul. Leave, Miss Riven. While you still can. The lake's awake, and it's hungry. She wanted to laugh, to call it superstition, to cling to logic, but the necklace's weight, the fish, the footprints, the words in her handwriting, they choked her words, her breath, her reason. She left the church, rain soaking her, lake's whisper louder, a chorus calling her name, echoing in her bones, her blood, her heart. She touched the spiral on the church door, edges cold, pulse strong, like a heart waking, beating with her own, with the lake, with the thing that lived in it. Chapter 12, Anya's Mark. Anya stumbled back into the cottage, the door slamming shut behind her, the lock clicking with a hollow sound that mocked her attempt to keep the lake out, to keep the darkness at bay. The air inside was heavy, thick with the stench of algae and decay, as if the lake had seeped through the walls, pooling in the corners, breathing in the shadows. Her hands trembled as she tore off her sodden shirt, the fabric clinging to her skin like a second flesh, cold and slick, weighing her down like the water in her dreams. She staggered to the bathroom, the mirror fogged with moisture, its surface rippling as if touched by an unseen breath, the lake's breath, alive and watching. She wiped it with her sleeve, her heart pounding, and froze at what she saw. Her reflection stared back, but it was wrong, her eyes too wide, pupils dilated like twin pools of black water, swallowing the light, glinting with something that wasn't her, something that belonged to the lake. Her skin was pale, almost gray, puckered in places, like it had been submerged for hours, for days, for centuries. And there, across her back, were marks, red, raw welts in the shape of webbed hands, their fingers long and sharp, claw-like, burning as if carved by something alive, something that had reached from the water to claim her. She touched the marks, fingers trembling, and hissed as pain flared, sharp and cold, like the lake's touch, like its teeth sinking into her flesh. The welts pulsed, hot and alive, as if something moved beneath her skin, swimming in her veins, curling around her bones, whispering her name from within. Her shadow on the wall shimmered, its edges blurred, rippling like water, not entirely her own, as if something else stood behind her, its shape fluid, its eyes glinting in the dark, watching, waiting. The necklace burned against her chest, its bone runes glowing faintly, sinking deeper into her skin, fusing with her flesh, binding her to the lake, to the drowned, to the thing that lived in the water's heart. She clawed at it, nails drawing blood, but it held fast, unyielding, its runes pulsing in time with the spiral carving on the doorframe, with the rain outside, with the heartbeat she felt in her chest, her blood, her soul, a heartbeat not entirely her own. Anya stumbled into the village square, boots slipping on cobblestones that gleamed wet despite the pause in the rain, each step leaving puddles that shouldn't be there, dark and viscous, like blood, like the lake's essence, bubbling faintly, alive, whispering her name, Anya. Anya. The air was heavy, the village silent save for the distant ripple of the lake, its sound carrying through the fog, a soft, relentless call that curled around her heart, squeezing until it hurt. Children playing in the square froze, their laughter dying, eyes wide with fear as they stared at her, at the puddles forming around her boots, at the water dripping from her hands, her hair, though she hadn't been near the marsh. "She's marked," one whispered, voice trembling, backing away, his small hands clutching a stone, as if it could protect him from her, from the lake, from the thing that marked her. "The lake's chosen her," another hissed, eyes darting to the horizon where the lake lay hidden, its presence a weight on the village, a shadow on their souls. They fled, footsteps splashing, their voices echoing in the fog, a chorus of fear, of accusation, of truth. Anya's breath came in sharp gasps, each one tasting of salt and decay, the lake's flavor clinging to her tongue, choking her, filling her lungs with its weight. She stumbled to a shop window, its glass fogged, streaked with moisture that moved, dripped, like tears, like blood, like the lake's breath. Her reflection stared back, but it wasn't hers, eyes too wide, mouth shadowed, jaw twitching as if fighting to stay closed, a trickle of dark water spilling from her lips, running down the glass, pooling on the cobblestones, bubbling like a spring, alive, whispering her name. She touched the glass, fingers trembling, and the reflection's hand moved differently, slower, its fingers webbed, nails sharp and yellowed, glinting like scales, like blades. She screamed, stumbling back, the glass cracking under her touch, a spiderweb of fractures spreading, water seeping through, pooling at her feet, smelling of algae, of death, of the drowned. She ran back to the cottage, heart pounding, breath raw, the journal heavy in her satchel, its pages screaming Eliza's warning, her own warning, written in ink that wasn't hers. It's coming. She locked the door, the click futile, the walls too thin, the air too heavy, the lake already inside, in her lungs, her blood, her bones. The fire in the hearth flickered, weak, casting shadows that moved, dripped, like water running down the walls, pooling on the floor, reflecting faces, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouth spilling water, hands reaching, webbed, sharp, glinting in the firelight. She opened the journal, hands shaking, pages heavy with moisture, ink blurring as if crying, as if drowning. Eliza's words bled into the paper, her fear alive, her voice a scream, the lake sees me. It's in me now. Anya's tears fell, tasting of decay, of the lake, burning her eyes, her throat, her soul. She turned the page, and there it was, new ink, fresh, her handwriting, though she hadn't written it, I'm theirs now. The spiral carving on the doorframe pulsed, its edges glistening, wet, as if weeping, its rhythm stronger, a heartbeat echoing the lakes, the rains, her own. She touched it, fingers cold, and felt it throb, alive, warm, like flesh, like the lake's heart, calling her, claiming her. The rain outside grew louder, a torrent now, screaming her name, a chorus of voices, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouth spilling water, hands reaching, webbed, sharp, hungry. She stumbled to the window, glass fogged, streaked with water that moved, formed shapes, faces, Jonas, his eyes wide, jaw clenched, teeth cracked, the woman from the marsh, her dress heavy, eyes empty, mouth spilling water, others, dozens, hundreds, their faces pressed against the glass, hands scratching, nails sharp, leaving marks that bled water, dark and viscous, bubbling, alive. Their voices rose, a chorus drowning the rain, the wind, the world. Anya, come to us. She backed away, heart pounding, breath raw, the necklace burning, runes sinking deeper, carving her from the inside, marking her as theirs. The floor was wet now, though the roof was dry, water pooling around her boots, reflecting her face, eyes too wide, mouth spilling water, jaw twitching, not her own, not anymore. She clawed at her arms, expecting scales, expecting something not human, her skin burning where the webbed marks deepened, as if something pressed from within, trying to break through, to claim her, to pull her into the lake's heart. The journal fell open, pages turning on their own, ink bleeding, forming new words in her handwriting. The water is me now. She screamed, voice tearing, but the sound was swallowed by the rain, by the faces, by the hands pressing against the glass, scratching, reaching, their nails glinting, their voices calling, relentless, eternal. Anya sank to her knees, hands clutching the journal, its pages heavy, sodden, like drowned flesh, its words blurring, her tears mixing with the lake's water, burning her skin, her soul. The cottage shook, walls creaking, floorboards groaning, as if the lake were rising, seeping through the earth, through the wood, through her, claiming everything. The fire died, plunging the room into darkness, save for the faint glow of the necklace's runes, pulsing, burning, a heartbeat not her own. Her shadow moved, a woman's figure, dripping, eyes empty, mouth spilling water, hands reaching, webbed, sharp, glinting in the dark, her fingers cold, nails clawing at Anya's skin, drawing blood that mingled with the water, staining the floor black, bubbling, alive. The spiral carving glowed, its pulse stronger, faster, echoing the lake, the rain, the voices, her name, Anya, you're ours. She stumbled to the door, hands shaking, nails bloody, and flung it open, rain pouring in, a flood that wasn't rain, cold and black, smelling of decay, of the lake, of the drowned. The village was gone, swallowed by fog, by water, its streets rivers, its houses sinking, their windows reflecting faces, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water, hands reaching, calling her to the lake, to the dark, to the heart that beat beneath the water, beneath the earth, beneath her skin. She ran, boots slipping, mud sucking at her, each step heavier, the lake pulling, its hands cold, fingers sharp, voices loud, a scream, a command, a curse, Anya, come to us. The necklace burned, runes sinking deeper, her skin tearing, blood mixing with water, her reflection in every puddle, eyes not hers, mouth spilling water, hands webbed, nails sharp, reaching for her, claiming her, drowning her. Chapter 13, A Choice in the Rain. The storm roared, sky black as the lake, wind a wounded beast, tearing at Drayorn, ripping tiles from roofs, snapping trees, scattering leaves like ashes into the night. The water rose, spilling over banks, flooding streets, turning the village into a maze of rivers, cobblestones slick, reflecting faces, pale, bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water, hands reaching from the depths. Reverend Malik vanished, his church empty save a single candle, its flame blue tinged, untouched by the wind, casting shadows of drowning figures, hands clawing, mouths open, eyes accusing, watching from the dark. The townsfolk gathered in the square, gaunt, soaked, eyes on Anya, whispers sharp as knives, cutting through the rain, accusing, condemning, damning her soul. She's the one, a woman hissed, shawl dripping, eyes wild, hands clutching a rosary, beads slipping into the mud, her voice trembling with fear, with certainty. The lake chose her. She's marked, cursed. No. Callan pushed through, soaked, trembling, eyes distant, underwater, face pale as death, hands clenched, nails digging into palms, drawing blood that mixed with the rain, staining the ground. It's me. I'll go. For my sister, for my guilt. Anya grabbed his arm, fingers slipping on his wet sleeve, heart pounding, lungs tight, the lake already inside her, filling her, drowning her from within. You can't. It's not your fault. Her voice broke, raw, desperate, the necklace burning, runes pulsing, binding her to the water, to the drowned. I owe it, he said, voice shattering, eyes fixed on the lake, its surface glinting through the fog, calling, whispering his name, her name, their names. I didn't save her. I won't fail again. His hands shook, boots sinking into the mud, the ground pulling at him, as if the lake reached through the earth, hungry for his blood, his breath, his life. The crowd parted, silence heavier than the rain, faces blank, as if they'd already mourned him, buried him, forgotten him in the lake's embrace. Anya's boots sank, legs heavy, the lake pulling her down, its hands cold, slick, sharp, whispering, Anya, come to us. Puddles reflected faces, eyes wide, jaws clenched, water pouring, hands reaching, webbed, nails glinting like knives in the storm's light, hungry, relentless. She stumbled, hands clawing at the air, breath raw, the necklace burning, runes sinking deeper, as if carving her from the inside, marking her as theirs. The crowd's whispers grew louder, a chorus with the rain, with the lake, accusing her, calling her, damning her. She's the one, she's marked. Anya ran to Callan, grabbing his shoulders, shaking him, her voice a scream against the storm. You don't owe it anything. The lake's lying, using your guilt, using her memory. Her words choked, tears mixing with rain, tasting of decay, of the lake's hunger. But Callan's eyes were empty, like he was already gone, already drowned, his body moving but his soul sinking, pulled by the lake's call, by the faces in the water, by the sister he couldn't save. "I have to," he whispered, voice barely audible, hands trembling as he pulled away, stepping toward the lake, its surface shimmering, alive, waiting. The crowd watched, silent, their eyes reflecting the water, reflecting the drowned, reflecting her fate. Anya's screams were lost in the wind, her hands reaching for him, but the townsfolk held her back, their grip cold, unyielding, their faces blank, their eyes empty, like they were already part of the lake, already claimed, already lost. Chapter 14, The Drowning. Callan waded into the lake, water black and still, surface unbroken despite the storm's fury, a mirror reflecting nothing but darkness, hunger, death. Anya screamed, throat raw, heart pounding, but the townsfolk held her, hands cold as the grave, eyes empty, drowned, their fingers digging into her arms, bruising her flesh, binding her to the shore as Callan stepped deeper, water rising to his knees, his waist, his chest. The lake rippled, then parted, revealing faces, dozens, hundreds, pale and bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water that churned the surface, bubbling like a cauldron, alive, hungry, their gazes fixed on Callan, on Anya, on the village, on the world. Their hands reached from the depths, webbed, nails sharp, glinting like blades, pulling at the air, at the rain, at his soul. Callan sank, body swallowed, hands clawing at the sky, fingers scraping the air, screams muffled by the water, eyes wide with terror, reflecting the faces, the hands, the hunger. Anya fought the townsfolk, her screams tearing her throat, her nails drawing blood from their hands, but they held fast, their faces blank, their eyes reflecting the lake, reflecting the drowned, reflecting her. The lake surged, a violent wave, and spat Callan out, coughing, trembling, crawling to shore, hands clawing at the mud, eyes wild, voice raw, gasping, "It doesn't want me. It wants you." His words were a knife, cutting through the rain, through her heart, through her hope, leaving her bleeding, exposed, marked. Anya ran, rain a torrent, puddles reflecting alien faces, eyes wide, jaws clenched, water pouring, hands beckoning, webbed, sharp, glinting like knives. Windows shimmered with wet figures, hands pressed against glass, nails scratching, voices whispering her name, a chorus drowning the storm, louder than thunder, heavier than the rain, calling her to the water, to the dark. She stumbled through the marsh, reeds slicing her skin, blood mixing with water, staining the ground black, mud sucking at her boots, each step heavier, the lake pulling, its hands cold, fingers sharp, hunger endless. Faces rose from puddles, hands reaching, mouths moving, "Anya, come to us." She fell, hands sinking into the mud, feeling a pulse, ancient, relentless, a heart older than the earth, beating with the rain, her heart, the necklace's runes, the lake's hunger. The marsh closed around her, reeds tightening like fingers, water rising, cold and black, seeping into her clothes, her skin, her lungs. She saw them, hundreds of faces, pale and bloated, eyes open, mouths spilling water, hands reaching, webbed, nails sharp, their voices a chorus, a scream, a command, "Anya, you're ours." The necklace burned, runes pulsing, sinking into her chest, her soul, binding her to them, to the lake, to the drowned. She clawed at the mud, breath raw, vision blurring, but the water rose, pulling her down, her screams swallowed by the flood, by the faces, by the hands that held her, cold and slick, dragging her into the dark, into the lake's heart, where the pulse beat louder, stronger, eternal. She saw Eliza, her face pale, eyes empty, mouth spilling water, hands reaching, webbed, sharp, whispering her name. She saw Jonas, his jaw clenched, teeth cracked, water pouring from his mouth, eyes accusing, knowing. She saw Callan's sister, braid tight around her neck, hands clutching, eyes wide, reflecting the lake, reflecting her. They were all there, in the water, in the dark, their hands pulling, their voices calling, their hunger endless. Anya's lungs burned, water pressing in, heavy, alive, tasting of decay, of death, of the lake's truth. She thrashed, but the hands held fast, their nails digging into her skin, drawing blood that mingled with the water, staining it black, binding her to them, to the lake, to the drowned forever. Chapter 15, The Reflection. The storm passed, leaving Dreyarn silent, the lake a glass mirror, reflecting a sky too clear, too perfect, a lie woven to hide the truth, to bury the dead, to silence the screams. Anya's journal lay on the riverbank, pages sodden, ink bleeding into swirls, bloated like drowned flesh, its words dissolving into the lake's embrace, its secrets swallowed by the water. The final entry, scrawled in a barely human hand, read, "I don't know where the water ends and I begin. It's in me, pulling me down. They're in every reflection, every puddle, every breath. They know my name. They're coming for me." The village was a graveyard, houses leaning, windows dark, spirals carved on every door, pulsing faintly, like heartbeats, like the lake's heart, alive, awake, hungry. The air was heavy, silent, suffocating, broken only by the lake's soft ripple, its whisper never silent, calling names in the dark, claiming lives in the shadows. Anya was gone, her cottage empty, fire cold, notebook open to a sketch of the webbed footprint, lines smeared with water, as if the lake had touched it, claimed it, marked it as its own. The floor was wet, pooling with dark water that bubbled, alive, smelling of algae, of death, of the drowned. The spiral carving on the doorframe was warm, edges glistening, weeping, its pulse strong, relentless, a heartbeat older than time, beating with the lake, with the thing that lived in it. Callan sat by the lake, nets abandoned, hands trembling, eyes hollow, staring at the water, at the faces beneath its surface, his sister among them, her braid tight, eyes empty, mouth spilling water, whispering his name, accusing, calling. The townsfolk avoided him, their eyes averted, their whispers silenced, as if he too was marked, as if the lake had tasted his soul and found it wanting, but not enough to take, not yet. The church stood empty, Malak's Bible on the altar, open to a page stained with water, words blurred, unreadable, as if the lake had rewritten them, claimed them, made them its own. The candle still burned, its blue-tinged flame untouched, casting shadows of drowning figures, hands reaching, mouths open, eyes watching, waiting. Months later, a tourist stood by the lake, camera clicking, laughter echoing, ignorant of the carvings, the whispers, the faces in the water, the hunger in the dark. She leaned over, smiling at her reflection, hair catching the breeze, eyes bright with ignorance, with life. She froze, breath catching, camera slipping, splashing into the black, sinking into the depths. The face staring back wasn't hers, eyes open, jaw clenched, mouth spilling dark water, rippling, bubbling, alive, whispering her name. She screamed, stumbling back, but the lake rose, hands reaching, pale, webbed, nails sharp, fingers cold, pulling her down, her scream swallowed, body vanishing without a ripple, without a trace, into the lake's embrace, into its heart. The drowning season never ended. The lake waited, surface still, depths alive, whispering names, claiming lives, its hunger eternal, its heart beating in the dark, in the rain, in the blood of Dreyarn, in the souls it took. The spirals pulsed, the water whispered, and the faces watched, their eyes open, their mouths spilling water, their hands reaching, always reaching, for the next, for the one who would come, for the one who would drown.